Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC San Antonio. This will be coming to you on March 25th with the prelims starting at 3 in the afternoon. This will be an interesting fight, obviously, like I said, in Texas, with the main event being Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. Huge implications on the Bantamweight division. As usual, before we get into things, let's get a quick recap from last week when we had a crazy event, UFC 286. Definitely, I would say, lived up to the hype over in London, and both Jose and I over 500. As always, reliable guys out here in the MMA betting and picking community. So you can bet that if you were to bet on the guys we did, you'd be winning some money. Specifically, my only loss was picking Fiziev. Man, what a fight that was. Um, Gaethje has just showed his ability to be versatile and to tough it out and be a top end lightweight, make his adjustments, and still win that fight. Super impressive. Jose got Usman wrong, and also Casey O'Neill did not get it done against Jennifer Maia. But that being said, you can expect us to continue this hot streak of being over 500 this week. So as always, starting with my 5-weight, my most confident pick of what is currently listed for UFC San Antonio. I've got Chidi Njokuani, who's fighting Albert Duraev. I believe this fight will be the main card opener at middleweight. And as I stated, my 5-weight is Chidi Njokuani. They're both coming off losses here, but I think this is going to be a quick fight. Both are prospects, still younger fighters. Chidi's minus 194 right now, so relatively heavy favorite. Albert Duraev at plus 150. Jose, do you have any stake in this fight at all with your weights?
Yes, Nick. So for this one, I have Chidi Njokuani taking the W as well, but I actually have him as my one weight. Reason being is that I'm not sleeping on Albert Duraev. Both guys are 34, and even though that he did lose to Joaquin Buckley, he was riding an incredible 10-fight win streak, and he's done it all from finishing via TKO, submission, and decision, which could be his advantage in getting a win over Chidi Njokuani. But Chidi is just a phenomenal striker. He does lack the takedown department. He really doesn't go for takedowns. He's more of a flashy guy and likes to stay more up on the feet. But that's not also a problem with him. He does have a 75% takedown defense, and he's done well and been able to knock out guys that have taken him down, held him down before. So for this one, I am going with Chidi Njokuani. But again, just because Albert Duraev, I think he's a little more diverse in how he approaches the fight game compared to Chidi. Chidi's just flashy, but I think Albert's a little more diverse. So I think he can bring out other techniques besides just striking against Chidi to possibly pull out a W. But for this one, I got Chidi Njokuani as my one weight.
Okay. Yeah, man, it will be interesting to see his matchup against a guy like Duraev, who has a UFC submission under his belt in one of his 3 fights. And Chidi himself hasn't been submitted in the UFC, but he's not really seen the top end experience, top end talent that the UFC has to offer for guys that can grapple, wrestle, and use jiu-jitsu to choke you out or break your leg or whatever they want to do. So that being said, I'm just not sure it's going to be that big of a factor in this fight. One thing I want to mention is Chidi's size advantage as well, man. I think he's just going to be clearly the bigger guy. It's going to be very hard for Duraev to hold him down if that's what he wants to try and do. And like you said, Chidi has shown the ability in the past to just knock out dudes to try and take him down. So I expect to see that again here, and that's why he's my 5-weight.
And that carries over then to the next fight of the night, the one I'm just going to talk about, my fight weight. And this actually is part of the co-main event, and it's the former champ Holly Holm versus Yana Santos. Right now, Holly Holm is the betting favorite at minus 220, while Yana Santos is the betting underdog at plus 168. Nick, before I move on with this one, what weight do you have this fight at?
So this one, looks like we're both pretty heavy on Holly Holm here. She's my 4-weight. So that would have been my next most confident pick here. Holly Holm, her name kind of speaks for itself, which is part of the reason I think she is a heavier favorite on this card. But in all honesty, she just has shown in her career to be a better fighter overall as well. So to me, that's what kind of explain the reasoning for that. She's got more experience fighting for the belt against multiple of the best fighters that the UFC has had back in the late teens and early 20s. So that being said, I'm pretty confident here to ride out with Holly Holm. I guess one of the only things maybe going against her is her age, because she is still 8 years older than Santos, but in the same stance they have similar experience. So I think similar experience in the sense of number of pro fights, but not really similar experience in terms of talent that they've faced. And a lot of those losses that Holly Holm has to like Amanda Nunes, Jermaine Durandamy, Valentina Shevchenko, some of the best female fighters in UFC history.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Nick, on that. Yana Santos herself, she came into the UFC and she fought Cyborg for the featherweight strap, so it was a bit heavier. But Holly Holm, she fought Chris Cyborg and she had a close match with her. That's the thing about Holly Holm and why I'm siding with her as my 5-weight. Again, you mentioned her age being a factor, but I just overall do think her experience and how technically sound she is with her kickboxing and boxing in particular will carry her to a victory win. She has a win over Irene Aldana, who has phenomenal boxing, while Yana Santos has a loss to Irene Aldana via TKO in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight probably ends in similar fashion with Holly Holm outclassing her and finishing her early. If not, you should expect Holly Holm getting the unanimous decision win then by the end of the 3 rounds. So yeah, for this one, I'm pretty confident with going with Holly Holm as my 5-weight.
Awesome, yeah. And I totally concur then with my 4-weight that I agree that Holly Holm, who knows what she's going to do next after this win. She's getting up there. Maybe, of course, I'm sure she wants to make another run for the belt and all that, but who knows what she's thinking. We'll have to see come Saturday night. But that being said, Jose, let's move on to your 4-weight then, since we've already covered mine.
Yes. So for my 4-weight, this one is a featherweight bout between Nate Landwehr and Austin Lingo. Before I move too forward with this one, Nick, what weight do you have this fight at?
I don't have any weight on this one, actually. They do have currently, it seems like maybe they'll switch it up. The UFC, well, a lot of places have 6 fights right now on the main card. It's happened before. So I don't know. I rolled with the idea that there was 6 fights. So I do not have a weight on this one.
Okay, yeah. I guess yeah. For pretty much keep this one short. Anyways, yeah. So I have Nate Landwehr as my 4, and reason being is he has been prepared for this fight. He's not a last minute replacement like Austin Lingo. Even though Austin Lingo right now he does have only 1 loss to his name, and he's riding a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC. I just don't see him taking the win over Nate Landwehr in this one. Nate Landwehr, he's got half of his wins. He's a finisher. So that being said, I just have Nate Landwehr winning this probably even before the end of the 3rd round. Austin Lingo right now, his last 2 wins have came by unanimous decision. So for this one, I got Nate Landwehr as my 4-weight.
Yeah, I kind of avoided it thinking like, I have a lot of respect for Lingo. He is young. He doesn't have that much experience. So I think Lingo in a couple of years beats Landwehr, but I don't know if he does right now. So that's the main reason I kind of stayed away.
I got you.
So we'll go on to my 3-weight then, which is going to bring us to the main event of the night. Finally, we're going to get to discuss Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen, fight with massive implications on the division. I'm very curious to see what kind of styles, what kind of game plans each of these fighters go into this with. But in the end, my 3-weight is Marlon Chito Vera. I'm pretty confident that he can continue to ride his current streak that he's on right now. But the betting public does not. Currently, Chito Vera is plus 134 as the underdog, and Sandhagen is minus 172 as the favorite. Jose, what's your weight indicating for this fight?
For this one, I have Cory Sandhagen taking the W, and this one was actually a tough one because Marlon, he's been looking phenomenal lately, and while Cory Sandhagen himself, he's coming off actually a win over Yadong Song, but before that, 2 losses, close ones to Peter Yan and TJ Dillashaw. And he's proven to be able to hang up there with the best of the best, going toe to toe with two of the former champs. While Marlon Vera, he himself coming off a phenomenal finish over Dominic Cruz. I think their styles are a little different in terms of Cory Sandhagen. He's faster and flashy, and he has that knockout potential. While Marlon Vera, he's a little slower, but he also himself carries a lot of power. And if this fight makes it, I think, closer to the past the 3 rounds, I do see Marlon Vera possibly taking the win. So that's why I have this kind of in the middle. Cory Sandhagen, I think, should get the win on this one. I don't know if Marlon Vera is really good, but I just think because of the higher rate that Cory Sandhagen throws shots at someone is going to be his path to victory, either by knockout or unanimous decision. So, yeah, for this one, I have Cory Sandhagen as my 3-weight.
Okay. Yeah, man, I definitely respect Cory Sandhagen, and he's an animal, dude. He's done so much work. He's never been put down in the UFC KO wise. He's only been choked out once by the current residing champion Sterling. So, I mean, there's just not much you can knock Cory Sandhagen for. For me, it's just kind of riding the wave of Chito Vera. I get that he had most recently beaten a Dominic Cruz that's maybe not necessarily in his prime anymore. But honestly, I'm more impressed with his win against Rob Font. um, Look, man, I just think Marlon Vera continues to improve, and I think he has a little bit of an element of the jiu-jitsu as well. If he can get maybe a knockdown on Cory Sandhagen, obviously, if you just look at his raw takedown stats, it's not going to be an indication to say that Chito Vera is going for takedowns. But in the element that a knockdown occurs or a scramble occurs, a clinch occurs, and it does get to the ground, I'll very heavily take Marlon Vera in that situation as well. He's boasting 10 submission wins in his professional career, never been submitted himself. So that's another thing that I'm kind of hoping like maybe becomes a factor as the fight goes later on into the championship rounds that could potentially become a thing. And like you mentioned, once it gets past round 3, I'm very happy with having my money on Chito in that spot. So we'll see. Chito at this point, man, he's done so many like headlining events. I feel like, so he's got still a good amount of experience um, in 5 round fights. So we'll see what happens. But that's going to be the first then for a change. We had a couple of agreements there, and that's our first disagreement on this card.
Yeah. So, and that being said, then that just brings us to the next fight of the night, and this one is my 2-weight, and I have this one. I have it's between Andrea Lee and Maycee Barber, and I have Andrea Lee taking the W on this one right now. Andrea Lee is the betting underdog at plus 190, while Maycee Barber is the betting favorite at minus 250. And before I move forward with this, Nick, what weight do you have this fight at?
So this is the fight I have my 2 weight on. So we can agree on the weights, but funny enough, we do not agree on the winner. I picked Maycee Barber, the favorite, as my 2 weight here. She's a lot younger here and maybe doesn't quite have as much experience, but in the current state of women's MMA, I'm a lot less concerned about betting on young women's fighters than I have been in the past, for pretty obvious reasons. If you just simply look at the current landscape of champions in the women's division. So that being said, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think Andrea Lee hasn't beaten the greatest of competition in my opinion. Cynthia Calvillo is a great win. That's true. I guess I'll give her props for that one. But Maycee Barber is in her own right on a 3-fight win streak, and I think she's going to continue to ride that wave.
Yeah, no, I totally respect it. I mean, Maycee Barber was a hot prospect coming in and still is to effect. I mean, she's so young. She's only 25 years old. And I mean, she's gone toe to toe with the current champ, Alexa Grasso. So I totally see, yeah, like why she is the big betting favorite. This one, yeah, Andrea Lee would be like probably my betting dog of the week just because her size, and again, you mentioned her experience compared to Maycee Barber's, but her reach advantage. She has a 4.5 reach advantage, and she has phenomenal kickboxing. Not only that, great Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Right now, she throws more significant strikes than Maycee Barber. And in the grappling department, I would say they're about the same. So that being said, I do think because Andrea Lee is going to be the bigger girl here, she's gonna get the win, even though like she's 34 years old. Again, we were just talking about. I wouldn't compare her to Holly Holm whatsoever. But in this case, I wouldn't say the age is too much of a factor. So for this one, I kind of see some value in this betting underdog. So that's why I have Andrea Lee, but not so high on my list. That's why she's my number 2.
Okay. Sounds good. So that brings us then to the last fight then that we haven't discussed yet, which is currently listed on a lot of places as a main card fight, and I think things could get shuffled around. Maybe one of these fights ends up being the headliner of the prelims or something. But in either case, you're still going to get the scoop on what Moneyline MMA thinks. So for the last fight, we're going to bring up my one weight, which is Alex Perez versus Manel Kape, a flyweight bout. I got Alex Perez here. Jose, I think we've gotten all your 5 weights in, right? So I don't think you have anything on this.
No, but yeah, the reason why I didn't choose much is just because Manal Kape, he's looked phenomenal since his win over Adi Osborne. He's just been on tearing it up on his 3-fight winning streak. While Alex Perez, I mean, he was in his own winning streak of his own up until losing to Davison Figueiredo and Alexandra Pantoja, which again, that is nothing to shy away from. Like those are legit dudes to lose to. Granted, they happened in the first round. But again, I wouldn't sleep on him yet because, again, those losses I don't think mean too much because how good those opponents are. So for this one, I do think it's probably a closer fight than what it looks like on paper. But yeah, if I were to go to one, I'd probably go Manel Kape. But again, that's what I think it's closer than what it looks like on paper. So that's why I stayed out of this one.
Yeah, man, and that's really a great point, and kind of brings me to why I ended up placing Alex Perez as my one weight, because I agree in a similar sentiment with you and Andrea Lee, just seeing some value at the underdog spot there, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a lot of value here for Alex Perez at plus 164. Manel Kape has been doing phenomenally as of late for sure, but I'm just a little less impressed at the guys he's been fighting, and I think Alex Perez is a pretty considerate step up. Alex Perez had a little bit, 2021 was a complete wipe. Didn't get a single fight going, had multiple fights against Matt Schnell canceled. Still haven't made that fight happen. But in any case, his only losses lately have been to top echelon fighters. And I was just really impressed with his win against UCR Formiga back in 2020. He destroyed the dude's legs. He just absolutely made him look. And if he can do that against Manel Kape, I think he's got a great shot, because Kape isn't obviously not the kind of guy to get a takedown and wrestle, blah, blah, blah. Manel Kape's going to be standing there ready for his legs to get kicked. So if that can be a game plan that Alex Perez properly implements, similar to a Leon Edwards kind of thing against Kamaru Usman, those leg kicks did a lot of different things for that fight. So that's kind of the game plan I'd be looking to see out of Perez when I'm putting that bet down. So that's why he's my one weight. So that finishes it up. Those are an extra, really, honestly, a bonus fight for you guys there, and that we discussed 6 fights for this card. Got all 5 of our weights in here. The most confident pick definitely will be Holly Holm from the pod, just based on the high weightage from both of us there. And then the underdogs we'll have to disagree on, because my underdog's going to be Vera, the main headliner, and Jose's is going to be Andrea Lee. So that's just going to be that. Definitely. As always, follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA, getting our picks out there on Saturday. And then we'll have a week off this week. Obviously after Saturday, we're going to have a week in between April 8th when we get UFC 287, Izzy's rematch against Pereira. Can he get the middleweight bout, the belt, back? So that being said, you will hear from us next on our picks for that card. And until then, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you later.